Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents To Kill a God by C.S. Wilde, narrated by Cris Dukehart and Tim Paige. 1. Mera. The stench of stale beer and sweat invaded Mera's nostrils as she strode toward the bar. Her sharp sense of smell could be a gift or a curse. In moments like this, it was definitely a curse. A hockey match played on the screen behind the counter, the downtown Warlocks versus the Growling Pack. A handful of people sat at round wooden tables scattered throughout the place, cheering for their team and drinking. But Mera wasn't there for them. She'd come for the man sitting at the bar, who hunched over his shoulders. The wooden floor creaked as she approached. When she sat on the red, padded stool next to him, the seat's ripped leather grazed her jeans, scratching her thighs. "You chose a nice little place to wallow," she offered. The man took a long gulp of his drink, but didn't acknowledge her presence. With a sigh, she ordered a beer. The bartender, a tall furry creature that resembled an overgrown ferret, promptly delivered it with a sharp-teethed grin, the kind that was meant to be friendly, but instead looked frightening. He had to be a puka, though Mera wasn't a specialist when it came to the different types of fairies. In any case, seeing a Fae native working in Clifftown brought a giddy warm joy to her core. More and more, the people of Tagrad ventured outside their comfort zone, building the dream of a united country. The nation and Hollowcliff still had a long way to go, a fact that became clear when Mera realized all tables in the establishment kept a healthy distance from the man hunched at the bar. But that might not be related to prejudice at all. Maybe it was just survival instinct. Maybe a bit of both. "My money is on the downtown Warlocks," she said before taking a long gulp of her beer. The man chuckled, his sandy blonde hair curtaining his eyes. He focused on the glass of whiskey he was holding, then drained it in one go. "I don't need a babysitter, Mera." "I wouldn't be here if that was true." He gave her a weary chuckle. "Checkmate." "Emma is worried about you. She told me you haven't been feeding." It was obvious, really. Julian's skin stuck to his bones, and the deep circles under his eyes had a dark purple hue. Thin blue veins had begun spreading under his pale skin, and ruby-red streaks took over his hazel irises. "I have been feeding." He slammed his glass on the counter. "I ate a portion of fries 10 minutes ago." "They don't nurture you anymore, and you're well aware of that." As if to prove her point, his stomach growled, and Mera's eyebrow rose. "They'll go straight through your system. You should stay close to a bathroom, Jules. I'm not kidding." "I know," he scoffed. "Am I pathetic for actually wanting to go to the bathroom? For needing a little normalcy?" Eyeing the amber liquid in her glass, she shook her head slowly. "Not at all." It was her fault. If she had protected Julian, if she'd done her job as his partner, he wouldn't be in that situation. "Look, I can't pretend to know what you're going through. But if Emma hadn't turned you into a vamp, you would have died." "She should have let me. I prefer death over turning into a fucking bloodsucker." "You shouldn't call yourself that." "It's what I am." Julian turned to her with an exasperated look. "I literally have to suck blood to live." Her chest tightened with the disgust tainting his voice. "I know. But there's an entire burrow of you. You're not alone." She took a sip of her beer. "Also, there are tons of support groups out there. Surely they can help you adapt. But first, you have to accept who you are now." His gaze bored into hers for an uncomfortable moment, a moment in which Mera wondered if he'd caught her in her hypocrisy. Accept who you are. Big talk for a siren pretending to be human. "I'm in control." With a wave of his fingers, he motioned for the bartender, who promptly approached and refilled his drink. She stared pointedly at his willowy hand. "You're dangerously close to bloodlust, Jules. If you lose control, I'll be forced to stop you. Please don't make me do that." He chewed the inside of his cheek as if he were weighing his options.
"Would you stop me if you had to? Would you put a silver bullet in my forehead?"
"Never. Which means you would either kill or hurt me in the process, and probably everyone else in this pub. Would you prefer that?" His eyes wandered around the space, a certain pain in his gaze. Turning around, he took one long gulp of his whiskey, then hissed through his teeth.
"Guess I don't have a choice, do I?"
"Nope." She laid her hand on his shoulder. "The new captain said your post will be waiting for you when you're ready to get back in the force. You can do this, Jules. I know you can."
"I'll try, but I can't make any promises."
A heavy breath left his lips, even if he couldn't breathe anymore. Force of habit, she supposed.
"It won't be the same without Ruth, though."
Shoving the memory of her mom somewhere deep inside, Mera took another gulp of her beer. After clearing her throat, she nodded to the screen. "Let's finish the game, and then I'll drop you at Emma's. How about that?" With a small smile, Julian nodded. They watched the game for maybe 15 minutes, until the bell above the door jingled and a man clad in a black suit walked into the pub. The floor creaked as he hurried toward them. The tall and bulky man, a government agent most likely, wore sunglasses even though it was nighttime. Mera caught a whiff of wet dog hair as he approached. Werewolf. Julian's lips curled to show pointy fangs, and the red in his eyes intensified.
"Friend of yours, Mare?"
Her brow furrowed. "I have no idea."
"Detective Moria,"
the man greeted.
"I'll take Mr. Smith to Emma Morgan's address. Counselor Adams has requested an immediate audience with you."
Julian gawked at Mera.
"Are you kidding me? Counselor Adams as in Peter Adams? The representative of the human borough of the Tagradian Council? That Counselor Adams?"
She nodded.
"Since when do you have friends in skyscraper-high places?"
She studied her own feet, her voice nothing but a whisper. "He was a friend of Ruth's."
"Huh."
A veil of sadness fell upon his face.
"I see."
Mera took one last gulp of her beer and got to her feet, dreading what was to come. There could only be one reason why the counselor wanted to see her so urgently. Shit. To call the counselor's office huge was an understatement. The place had long walls, a floor built entirely of pearly marble, and a high ceiling that made the space seem way too vast. Walking in there always felt like entering an unending, well-illuminated cave. Mera's boots thumped against the floor as she strode to the dark mahogany desk at the end. The office's entire left wall was made of anti-reflection glass, which displayed a stunning view of nighttime Clifftown. Counselor Adams watched her approach through kind hazel eyes filled with worry. As always, he wore a pleated suit. He'd trimmed his blonde, going white hair and beard after the last time she'd seen him, at Ruth's funeral. The counselor had been in and out of Mera's life, a presence that, in hindsight, had always been there, even if barely seen or noticed. He used to visit when she was younger, but when she graduated from the police academy, his visits became scarcer. She never took it to heart, since he'd been elected counselor for the human borough that same year. Also, Mera had Ruth, and her mom was enough. She always had been. Settling on the leather chair that faced his desk, she glanced at him. He watched her sit, his hand steepling on his chin.
"Have you and Detective Day lost your minds?"
he asked in a placid tone that was anything but. "Counselor, I can assure you."
"You want to go to the Isles of Fog, yes?"
Yeah, but..."
"The natives from the Isles haven't been introduced to the modern world. nor do they want to. Also, they happen to be savages."
He leaned back on his chair, his manner poised and controlled.
"The Isles don't have a protection zone, but you're well aware of that. Any siren could waltz in and rip you and Detective Day apart, just like they did
His voice cracked, and he went quiet. After a moment, he let out a weary sigh.
"Anyone from the mainland is forbidden to set foot in there. Period. Not to mention the costs, of course. A Nightbringer would have to deviate considerably from its route to get there."
"I understand, but I have to go to the Isles. Contacting Atlantea is the only way to find a lead on Azenor. Despite Bast's protests, she'd told the counselor about the prick. After all, how could Tagrad defend itself from an enemy they didn't know? She admitted most parts, of course, especially the fact that the self-named Poseidon was her biological father. Counselor Adams raised one bushy, nearly white eyebrow.
"He's Atlantea's problem, not ours. Especially now that he seems to have given up on bringing chaos to land."
"Their problem will become ours. You can bet on that. Azenor might target Atlantea since his attempt to destroy Tagrad had failed, but eventually his focus would return to land. Psychos like him didn't give up easily, which was why she needed to get to the Isles. Once there, she could water break to Atlantea, but the counselor didn't need to know that. The prospect of seeing Professor Currenter, Uncle Barramond, and Belinda again brought fear and joy to her heart, but her feelings didn't matter. Mera had to warn them about Azenor. If they hated her for leaving after she'd killed the Queen, then so be it. Counselor Adams's fingers rhythmically tapped the mahogany surface, close to the form she'd submitted a week ago. Bureaucracy be damned. All Mera needed was his approval on that form, but it didn't seem like she would get it.
"So, you want to go to the Isles to contact Atlantea,"
he stated pointedly.
"You want to warn them about Poseidon. Maybe even work together with them to stop him."
That would be a nice plus. 2 birds with 1 stone, as people say.
"I see. And why do you think they won't use the macabre against you on sight?"
"They won't."
"Because you're one of them."
A loud gasp escaped Mera, and the floor seemed to crumble under her feet. "Of course not. I'm human."
"I was hoping you'd tell me sooner. I wanted the initiative to come from you, but I suppose Ruth taught you a little too well about self-preservation."
"You've lost your mind, Counselor." She gave out a nervous sneer. "Wanting to communicate with a siren doesn't make me one of them." His hands patted the air as if trying to appease her.
"Settle down, Detective. I've always known."
Carefully regarding her, he scratched his beard.
"Ruth told me when she adopted you. Why do you think I visited you so often when you were young?"
Surprise colored her expression, and she blinked, thinking about it for a moment. "You were assessing whether or not I was a threat."
"And you weren't. You aren't. Ruth raised you right. You care about others, and you give everything for this nation. She wasn't your biological mother, but you are just like her, in every way that matters."
His eyes glistened with tears. A rush of emotion swam through Mera, threatening to engulf her, but she swallowed them back. Thank you. That means a lot to me, sir."
"She was so very proud of you. You even set Detective Day straight."
With a shake of his head, the counselor chuckled to himself.
A remarkable feat, considering his nightblood.
A bitter taste laced her tongue. Bast's merits were his own, but she wasn't about to argue about it now. "So you know about me, Queen Wavestorm. You know about all of it?"
"Yes, I know your biological mother was raised from the dead by Poseidon and that she killed Ruth."
A certain fury swirled behind his otherwise calm stare.
"I'm glad you killed that monster a second time. I owe you a debt for avenging our Ruthie."
Ruthie? Now more than ever, Mera was certain that the counselor and her mom had shared something in the past, though she couldn't guess what kind of relationship they must have had. If you've always known, why am I still alive?
Ruth and I went through a lot together. More than you'll ever know. She trusted me, and I promised her that I would keep you safe should anything happen to her. You were the most important thing in her life.
Fan-fucking-tastic. If Mera was precious to Ruth and Ruth was precious to Adams, it meant Mera was precious to him too. That was good, in a way, because he wouldn't kill her on the spot tonight for being a siren. But bad because there was no way in hell he would let her risk her life to catch Azenor. Engines revolved in her mind as she tried to think of a way out of that mess. A way for him to grab one of the 2 stamps on his desk and punch "approved" on that damned form. "Peter," she started, "my mom made me one of Hollowcliff's finest, even though keeping me alive broke the law. There was one rule Ruth always put above the city and the country's needs: protect the innocent, no matter the cost." Her gaze shifted to the Clifftown nightscape beyond the glassed walls. "I promised myself I would honor her legacy, and that means I have to get to the Isles. Atlanteans are innocent, and they might need our help. What if joining forces with them is the answer to keep Tagrad safe?"
"Atlanteans and Tagradians working together?"
He laughed.
"I could never pass a motion like that in the council, no matter how hard I tried."
His gaze narrowed at her.
"How are you certain your people haven't joined Poseidon?"
"Last time I saw him, he seemed to despise my uncle."
"Seemed? Not good enough."
He leaned forward, interlacing his fingers on the wooden surface.
"How do you intend on stopping him? According to your report, killing Poseidon isn't an option."
"I'll figure out a way. Look, I'm asking you to trust me. Besides, you said you owed me for killing Ariella Wavestorm, so—" This was it. Her last shot. The counselor was considering it. She could see it in his eyes. He considered it for maybe 2 seconds, then shook his head.
"Your plan is reckless at best, and terribly conceived at worst. Your vow to protect the innocent goes against my vow to keep you safe. I am in your debt, Mera, but I cannot break my promise to Ruth."
Her lips pressed into a thin line. This was a giant waste of time, wasn't it?
"Not at all. We had a nice chat."
He gave her a mocking grin.
"I was hoping you'd give up eventually, but you certainly inherited your mom's stubbornness."
The counselor grabbed a stamp from his desk and slammed it against her form. Mera didn't need to read the big red letters to know what they meant. Denied. 2. Mera. When she stepped into her apartment, Mera found Bast standing in the living room, waiting for her with 2 glasses of wine. A wooden platter with ham and cheese rested atop the coffee table near the white sofa. She couldn't help but smile. No matter the hardships in their path, he would always be there for her. Her perfect heart.
"How was it, kitten?"
He handed her 1 glass but didn't wait for an answer before stamping a soft kiss on her lips.
"Is Julian feeling better?"
Bast's touch, his mouth, and his woodsy scent were fresh air to her. He's getting there. Tonight, Bast's silky loose hair fell over the left side of his face. His vest was unbuttoned, and so was the upper part of his shirt, revealing a strong chest made for licking and maybe a little biting. By now, Mera's siren would have added something along the lines of, "Soft biting can't damage the goods." But her presence had dimmed since her encounter with Azenor. Not that her siren was gone, of course. They'd always been one and the same, and that hadn't changed. They were simply more welded together somehow. Perhaps accepting her past had caused the change. Perhaps it had been something else entirely. Shrugging it off, she clinked her glass with his before taking a sip. The wine tasted smooth and velvety as it went down her throat. This is good.
It should be.
He gave her a cocky grin.
It comes from the best vineyards in Lunar Insul.
Mera gawked at him. You guys have vineyards?
Of course.
Bast took another sip.
Why do you think Ben is an alcoholic? He took a Nightbringer to Al Raleigh last month, because they have a wine festival that's supposed to be divine. Last we spoke, he was having so much fun he refused to come back.
That seems right up Ben's alley.
It is. The Baku even told me he found his life's purpose, to become a winemaker in the warm, welcoming bosom of Al Raleigh.
His free hand ran along her back.
He'll probably grow out of it within a year.
Smiling, Mera leaned her forehead against his chest. You days and your strikes of fancy. He kissed the top of her head, his hand pulling her closer to him.
Despite my attempt to lighten the mood, something is still bothering you. Is it Julian-related?
Worry and trepidation flowed from his side of their bond, even if Bast had nothing to fear. Jules is back at Emma's. I called her on the way here, and she said he already fed a bit, so that's progress. But I wouldn't say I helped. Not nearly enough.
Ah, there's my partner who carries the weight of the world on her shoulders.
Hooking a finger under her chin, he lifted her face gently.
You did what you could. That's all any of us can do.
He had a point, but that didn't diminish her guilt. Mera stared at him, dreading what she was about to say next. Counselor Adams requested an urgent audience with me tonight. It took weeks for that damn form to reach his desk, and once it finally did... She shook her head. He was playing me. He wanted us to stay put. Bast spun his glass in small circles, watching the liquid twirl.
So, he denied our request.
He did. And also, he knows. Mindlessly sipping his wine, he glanced at her while a frown marred his forehead.
Knows what?
That I'm a siren. The crimson liquid caught in his throat, and he nearly spat it out as he glared at her.
What? Did you tell him? Why would you do that?
Calm down. He's known since Ruth adopted me. It's the reason why he denied the request, actually. He's being overprotective. Her heart still stared at her in a panic, his strong chest heaving. Even though he seemed terrified, Bast looked absolutely stunning. Standing on her toes, Mera pecked his lips. She set both glasses on the kitchen counter, then kissed the curve of his neck. You know, I had a long day. His muscles relaxed, if only a bit.
You're trying to distract me.
And you're thinking about murdering the counselor to keep my secret. Her teasing hands removed his open vest and tossed it aside, then went on to unbutton the rest of his shirt. You forget our bond, and our mind link.
Hallie.
He scratched the back of his neck.
Kitten, I have to keep you safe.
I am. Counselor Adams won't talk. A growl rose from Bast's throat.
Well, we can always go to the Isles unofficially. But we would be arrested when we return to Tagrad. We'd probably be charged with treason, too. Is that a price you're willing to pay?
He asked as Mera nibbled at his lower lip. Yes. You? She tossed his shirt aside. In return, Bast removed her black leather jacket, then pulled up her t-shirt and let it fall to the ground. His hooded gaze locked on her lacy black bra, and he licked his lips.
How could I not join you, Minhart?
His eyes glinted with something wild and untamed.
Being up to no good is a talent of mine, you see.
It really is. Standing on her toes, she kissed the edge of his jaw. Now, How about we practice some stress relief, Detective Day? Bast groaned, eyes closed while he relished her kisses.
Evil Akratana.
He undid her bra masterfully, then her pants, and faster than she realized, Mera stood there, fully naked. Bast took a step back to admire her, a certain worship beaming from his eyes.
Mine. All mine.
Her hungry gaze took in his strong abs below a chiseled torso, the smooth tanned skin she loved to kiss, and those wild, clear blue eyes that watched her so lovingly. Hers. All hers. She licked her lips when she spotted the massive bulge inside his pants. Stepping closer, her fingers began undoing his belt, her eyes locked on his. Bast caressed her hair while his free hand went down to her naked ass.
What you do to me?
He breathed. Once his belt was unbuckled, Mera pulled off his pants and underwear. Soon enough, there he stood, as naked as she was. Beautiful, feral, hard as freaking stone. Suddenly scooping her up in his arms, Bast winnowed them to her bedroom. He dropped Mera on the mattress, bridging atop her. His mouth rained kisses along her neck, then her breasts. His tongue twirled around her nipples, before he licked his way down to her crotch. Spreading her legs apart, he glanced at her with eager, wicked blue eyes. Without warning, he sunk his mouth into her most intimate part, his tongue playing with the pearl between her thighs.
"Ah, Bast,"
Mera gasped, arching her back as pleasure unfurled inside her. He ravaged her with his mouth non-stop, barely giving her time to breathe. Heat pooled inside her, shooting up to her head while she clawed at the sheets. Soon her fingers moved to his head, caressing his locks as he kept attacking her. Already Mera's desire dripped down her skin to the bed, her core aching, burning to explode. Bast's assault was violent, merciless, and too good for her to bear. She fought against the buildup, but it was useless. Her eyes rolled back, and just like that, she came undone, roaring out his name as she shuddered harshly. Bast held her hips in place while ecstasy consumed her, his grip hard as steel. Not willing to let go, his tongue kept twirling around the pebble between her thighs, making her see white. It felt like drowning and breathing at the same time.
"Ah, you prick,"
she bellowed as another wave of pleasure hit her, a scorching storm that swallowed her completely. Once she returned to herself, Bast let go with a grin. His lips were coated in her juices. Mera's body felt like jelly as he crawled up on her. Her heart admired her with complete devotion.
"Hearing you scream like that is my favorite thing in this world."
She wrapped her arms over his strong shoulders. "Then make me scream again." Leaning down, Bast kissed her so hard that his teeth scraped the tip of her tongue. Mera tasted herself on his lips, and a moan escaped her mouth, flowing into his. His hips bucked, and with one hard shove, he plunged into her while drowning her in kisses that made her forget her own name. Gasps burst from her as he slid between her walls. The muscles on Bast's back shifted with each slow, harsh thrust, and Mera closed her legs around him, if only to feel more of him sliding in and out, in and out. Hell, she might scream again too soon.
"I love you,"
she breathed, cupping his cheeks when he increased the pace.
"You are my life."
He bit the curve of her neck gently, his hips bucking in a frenzy. A resigned moan swirled in his chest.
"Mera, you feel so fucking good. Ugh."
He hissed through his teeth. Bast rammed into her, making her bed creak loudly. In the bed's defense, it had withstood a great deal of lovemaking. Just yesterday it nearly cracked as Mera rode Bast into his undoing. But much like Mera herself, the wooden frame was tougher than it looked. Heat shot up to her head while he relentlessly plunged into her, making her see stars. As his hips slammed against her, Mera couldn't keep her ground, couldn't control.
"Bast,
I think I... She didn't get to finish the sentence. Once again, she exploded.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?